Welcome everyone to Sharp Talk. My name is Tomas, and this is Doug Marcaida, Forge and Fire, judge, martial artist, and stretching enthusiast.
I'm just trying to see how flexible I am, or if you could use flexible weapons.
Let's cut into it. In this episode, we're talking about flexible weapons. Now, what's the point of flexible weapons? Why would someone even consider that when there's knives and sticks?
Well, the idea of understanding flexible weapons means you got to understand all the attributes of whatever you can pick up. If it's got an edge, it can cut. If it's got a point, it can puncture. If it's flat, it can cause blunt force trauma, right? Now, what about if it's flexible? All of the above, plus this can become projectiles, right? That's to distract and run away. It's whatever you can pick up other than your own limbs. But let's not get all wrapped up about that.
Nice.
Right? What we're going to talk about is how do I understand to use this? Let's use the guide that Filipino martial arts always uses, right? The stick. So if I were to think of my flexible weapon as a stick, looking at that, for example, now that I have this in my idea, this is how to understand why it's just as effective.
Doug, it looks like you just made that flexible weapon unflexible.
That's right.
Why?
Because a lot of people, they only understand impact, right? They don't understand flexibility. So we know this is not flexible, but let's understand the techniques that you know for impact. If on an impact weapon, I know I can strike someone, I will just think of the flexible weapon, hold on to that for a second, as the same thing like a stick that I can still strike someone the same way. It's not as hard of an impact, but there are ways when you can actually create impact. I can put a knot in here, weighing it, right? All of a sudden, put your hand out. When I hit it with a knot, all right,
what the?
I can do that. And also using understanding the weight of this, right? Flexible weapons.
I hope people understand that this is just off the cuff. That legit hurt heck of bad. Way more than I thought it was gonna hurt.
Oh, I got other ways to make it hurt. That's why you understand it. But so to me, it's the same way as making impact with my stick, right? Now I can make impact with the knot. And I'm just going to go slow with that.
Yeah,
all right, got that, right? Now, there are other ways. Let's say I don't have time to create a knot. Dip it in water and get the same thing. Who has never had this fun playing with towels and snapping with each other, right?
Yeah.
You can hear that snap. That's almost like breaking the sound barrier when you're doing it. So there is a thing to that. Now, moving on. If I can also think of my stick here as an impact weapon, then I can also know that if you punch, I can hook with it. I can block with it. I can push something with the stick. Now, without the stick, I just studied the idea that if I keep it very taut, right, and tight, I can redirect. The impact now isn't about the flexible weapon, but what's attached to the flexible weapon, right? When I block here, it's buy me time to do that and strike with the other hand. I mean, you don't give up where you have that impact. That had I had the impact tool, I would block and hit with that tip onto that. It's the same way now, my hands will actually help do that. The beauty of this is that I can wrap my hands to protect my hand if I were to use it. Because sometimes there's an edge, could be against an edge weapon. So I'd rather deal with the edge, my hands can get cut. Wrapped around, I still have the ability to protect. That's why they also wrap their arms when they're doing that. Now I have not only a shield here to protect from edge or to protect anything that's cutting in there, but it protects a little bit, buys you a little bit of time, right? It doesn't mean that this is gonna catch, but I can also use that as a impact weapon, just wrapping around to protect you. So a flexible weapon also gives you that layer of protection against edge weapons. Layer to also pad if you're doing it for impact. But it's still got the impact because your limbs are attached to the flexible weapon.
So something I want to point out is that when I've always thought about flexible weapons, or I've seen people doing it like with a bandana, it's always been loose and flowy. But what you just showed was using it as a taunt to redirect that force, just like a two-handed stick.
Because this is what teaches me. I look for something that I know. Then I look at the attributes. I know that if you keep it loose, and that's not to say that you don't, because sometimes you want to capture, But if I keep it loose and I try to block, it's going to wrap around, but it's not going to push him away. So let's say you give me a back fist in there. If it's loose, that's going to come through. If it's taut with that, I keep it tighter, I can re-guide, and I can use the other parts of my body to then buy distance. Now, if it is loose, then we look at the attribute of what a flexible weapon can do that a impact weapon or an edge that is strong cannot, and that's wrap around its target. Now, for example, if I were to take this target center and I were to strike here, that's the impact that you end up with. If I understand the idea of a flexible weapon having that ability to wrap around, then when I throw this, just watch this motion, I have that, and that wait in there for half a second, right? Right now, I'm gonna go very slow.
Thanks.
You can tell what the impact would have been, but sometimes you have to understand also what centrifugal force can do for you and what speed and velocity will do with the weapon. If I simply were to wrap around this way to the face, but then watch, well, that's going to be more nicer. Put your arm out, right? So if I were just to wrap this here, see that? See the way it wraps around this?
It's like Indiana Jones's whip, huh?
Yeah, sideways, right? So if I were just to throw this around and just wrap around, that's just being nice. See the wrap around?
Yeah.
So imagine if this was your face. Now you can start to see when I wrap around, all right?
Yeah.
So imagine, and I'm going to go slow, put your hand here, just to be nice, right? If I were just to simply wrap around here.
Oh, that hit it. Oh,
Right?
Look at that face. Anytime he hurts me, that smile comes out. It's sadistic.
No, but that's the whole
But
idea,
that's so
right?
true.
So
That's
I just wrap around because because what happens is you can get also rug burn.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And as I do this, I'm going to go from different angles so you can actually see, right? So just protect your face,
Yeah,
right?
I got you.
And just go down. Oh! And then around his hand. Then to protect your face. But
No. Let's get it out. It hit the back of the neck.
yeah, do this.
Hit the back of the neck.
Yeah, I won't hit because that's what I'm trying to hook.
I got you.
You're too wide. I wouldn't do that. Right here, I could. Right? See, I'll go very slow. But when I throw this around, see, as soon as it's in here, I immediately pull. And it'll drag you for a second. But that's not to say that when this weapon comes through, that doesn't follow. And there you go from your distance.
Nice.
Turn this way.
it red?
Start to see that.
Is it red? Let's
Right?
look here.
Yeah, it's red.
That's cool. And this is like, what material is this?
Cotton? I don't know. It's just my
Available
hoodie.
at DougMarcaida.com.
No, yeah, exactly, right?
That's really cool.
I start to look at this from this point of view because if I understand impact, then I look at the attributes of a flexible weapon. For example, now you start to see if I were to allow it to wrap around, this is where you start to see how a lot of the Filipino martial arts of knife tapping works to do that, to capture. Right? So when you see here, it's like, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to stop and use it, but for 1 second, I have his hand. What allows me, this is secondary. You see, a lot of people, they're so, I'm going to wrap this, I'm going to lock you in. No. This works here because that got hit. Then I can throw him and lock him. Do you understand how it works? It's not because I want to lock him with this. It's one of these, at any point I can release and then strike again. It's a half a second thing of what I'm doing with this to lock in here. But you see how the elbows and everything helps as secondary to strike with that. The danger about wrapping around stuff is that if later on I do get caught up with this, right? So now I'm hooked on to hold on to him. But at the same time, watch out, for the same time, now just a little pressure on the neck, he starts choking, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the choke I'm after. It's the fact that the elbows and hits are there. Keep it.
Nice. Okay, so I get it. So just because it's a flexible weapon doesn't mean that's the primary weapon. It's a service to the other strikes.
Because we can call this a flexible weapon, but in reality, it's a tool. I am the weapon.
You guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg for flexible weapons. Make sure to stay tuned for future Shark Talk episodes where we dive deeper into improvised weapons, self-defense tools, and more tutorials.
Stay sharp.